The first night. I never believed a single week could unravel someone's sense of safety, but now I know better. Every Christmas since that winter feels colder, not because of the snow, but because of what I learned lurks in the empty spaces of December nights. It began last year, the first time I ever stayed home alone for the holidays. My family decided to drive down south to visit relatives, and I had to stay behind because my job scheduled me through Christmas Eve. They offered to cancel, but I insisted I'd be fine. I genuinely believed it. My neighborhood sits on the outer edge of a small mountain town. Most houses sit far back from the road with huge yards between properties, beautiful in the fall, unnerving in the winter. When families leave for the holidays, the entire road turns dark except for stray porch lights buzzing against the wind. On my first night alone, everything was peaceful. I made soup, watched movies, and fell asleep early. The second night is when everything truly began. It was a little past 7 p.m., already pitch black outside, when I heard a sound that pulled me out of the kitchen singing. A slow, dragging voice, muffled by the walls, humming a Christmas song I couldn't recognize. Not cheerful, not playful, drawn out, off-key.
Wrong.
I muted the TV and stood still. The singing grew clearer, closer, until it sounded like it was coming from right outside my front door. I crept quietly to the peephole, expecting to see kids messing around, maybe teens trying to be funny. Instead, a man stood on my porch, alone, facing my door, swaying slightly as he sang the same chilling melody in a looping rhythm. His clothes were soaked from the snow, and he wasn't wearing gloves. His skin looked grayish from the cold. I didn't open the door. I didn't say a word. The man raised his head mid-song like he sensed me watching. But instead of trying to look into the peephole, he simply smiled, too wide, too slow, and continued singing even louder, like he wanted me to hear every slurred word. I backed away and turned off every light in the house. After about 10 minutes, the singing stopped. Silence flooded the house, but it wasn't comforting. I waited another minute before checking again. He was gone. I barely slept that night, but I convinced myself it was just someone drunk wandering from a Christmas party. A one-time thing. It wasn't. The next day, my friend Trevor invited me to a local winter fair downtown to get my mind off things. The place was packed, kids eating funnel cakes, families taking photos, live music playing on stage. Crowded enough that I felt safe again, until I noticed someone staring at me from across the ice rink. He was tall, wearing a dark green winter coat, and standing perfectly still while everyone else around him moved. His eyes never broke from me, not even when people walked in front of him. And something about him felt familiar. I told myself I was being paranoid. Crowds are full of people who stare without realizing. But then Trevor went to use the restroom, and I wandered near the vendors alone. I stopped to look at handmade ornaments, and when I glanced up, I saw him again. Closer this time. Still staring. I left immediately and found Trevor, telling him I felt sick and needed to go home. We walked toward the exit, and just as we stepped outside the main gate, someone bumped into me, hard enough to send me stumbling. I turned, ready to snap, but the man simply said,
Sorry.
Didn't mean to lose you in there.
Lose me.
Not bump into you. Not excuse me. Lose you. His voice was the same pitch as the singing from the night before, same dragging cadence, same echoing wrongness. But what terrified me most was that he didn't look like the man from my porch. He was someone else. Another one. I grabbed Trevor's sleeve and didn't explain, I just said we needed to leave now. We got into his truck and drove off. I expected that to be the end of it. But halfway home, a black pickup pulled behind us. No headlights. No plate lights. Just the faint outline of its grille in the mirror. It followed us all the way to my driveway, stopped at the curb, and stayed there until Trevor turned his high beams on them. Only then did the truck slowly pull away, turning the corner without ever revealing who was inside. Trevor asked if I wanted to stay at his place. I didn't answer him, because when I looked up at my house, I saw something pressed against my front door. A folded piece of paper. And on it, written in charcoal black strokes, "Nice to see you again. The woods." I didn't sleep after finding that note. I sat awake in the living room with every light on, baseball bat on my lap, staring at the front door as if it might quietly open at any moment. Nothing happened, but silence felt like a threat. By morning, I finally convinced myself it had to be a prank from someone at the fair. A chance encounter. A coincidence. 100 excuses lined up in my head like shields. But the feeling of being watched didn't leave. Not even in daylight. To distract myself, I agreed to help my sister pick out a Christmas tree in the mountains that afternoon. She and her husband were taking their kids, and they invited me along so I wouldn't mope around home by myself. A crowded family outing sounded like exactly what I needed. A chance to forget. We drove up winding forest roads, the kids singing carols in the back seat, my sister joking that I looked like I hadn't slept in a week. I told her I was fine, and she didn't push it. By the time we reached the tree-cutting area, the sun was already low. A thin fog crept between the trunks, and the snow-covered ground muffled our footsteps. My sister's husband handed me a spare saw. "Come on," he said. "Let's find the biggest one." The kids ran ahead laughing, wine-red scarves trailing behind them like ribbons. For a moment, I felt normal again. But the woods weren't normal. Not that day. The deeper we walked, the quieter everything became, sound dying more with every step. I kept glancing over my shoulder, feeling silly for doing it until I caught something in the tree-line. A figure. Not moving. Half hidden between the pines. I stopped walking so abruptly that my sister almost bumped into me. "You good?" she asked. I blinked, and the figure was gone, like it had sunk into the darkness. I shook it off. Yeah, just thought I heard something. We kept going until the fog thickened and the path behind us disappeared. The kids finally found a tree they loved, tall and deep green, so we started cutting it down. Halfway through sawing, I heard crunching footsteps in the snow behind us. I didn't turn around. I just froze. Then my sister whispered, "Do you see that?" Her voice trembled. Slowly, I looked up. Across the clearing, at least 20 yards back among the trees, stood a man. Then another. And a third. All dressed for autumn, not winter. No gloves. No hats. Their clothes stiff and worn, like they'd slept in them. And each one stood perfectly still, watching silently. "Probably hikers," my sister's husband muttered.
But even he didn't sound convinced.
"Hikers don't watch people like that," I whispered. The men didn't move. Didn't blink.
Didn't speak.
They simply stood there, staring across the clearing at us, just enough in the shadows that I couldn't make out their faces. My niece tugged on my coat then. "Who are they?" she whispered, her voice too small. I forced myself to sound calm. "They're nobody. Let's get going." We didn't cut the tree. We didn't walk. We ran. My sister grabbed her kids, and her husband and I backed away slowly at first, then picked up speed as the figures behind us drifted silently forward. Never chasing, never calling out, just following at a distance like they were hurting us. The moment we reached the main lot, I thought it was over. But when we reached the car, both of the rear tires were shredded, jagged slashes cutting through the rubber. Not like punctures. Like someone dragged a blade with force and intent. I felt the air leave my lungs. My sister panicked, trying her phone. No signal. I lifted mine. No signal either. Her husband swore under his breath and told us to stay close while he checked the trunk for repair tools. I turned slowly, looking back toward the tree line. The men were gone, but the woods weren't empty. The shadows looked too thick, too busy, too alive. Then I saw movement deeper among the pines, shapes slipping between the trunks with silent precision. Not one, not three.
More.
I finally understood. This wasn't a chance encounter. This wasn't random. The man at my door, the stalker at the fair, the note. They weren't separate incidents. They were connected, coordinated, and they had followed me. My sister gripped my arm suddenly. "What's happening? Why are they doing this?" But I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that someone or several someones had been watching me long before I realized it. And they weren't anywhere near finished. The return. The police found us an hour later. Not because they were called, Our phone still had no signal, but because another family in the area reported hearing distant shouting in the woods. 3 officers arrived, examined the shredded tires, and walked the perimeter with flashlights, but the men who stalked us were long gone. One officer tried reassuring us, insisting we probably scared off some squatters or drifters. He didn't understand. There weren't just drifters in those trees. There was coordination, a system, a plan, and they followed me, not us. The police towed our car, drove us down the mountain, and insisted on escorting us all the way home. When we finally reached my house, I felt a wave of paranoia wash over me. Every shadow, every bush, every roofline looked like it concealed someone. My sister hugged me and said, "Whatever this is, it's done now. You're home. It's over." But the way the officer looked at me, he didn't say it was over. He didn't say anything at all. I spent the next day trying to calm myself.
Shower.
Eat something. Clean the house. Act normal. But the feeling didn't go away. Someone was still out there. I kept replaying the moments, the singing man at my porch, the stalker at the fair, the men in the woods. Different faces, different builds, but the same expression behind their eyes. Like they all knew the same secret. Like they were following the same script. By dusk, my nerves were tight enough to snap. Even the decorations in my living room looked distorted in the dim light. I turned the TV on for noise and shut all the curtains. Around 7 p.m., the doorbell rang. My stomach dropped instantly. 3 soft chimes. Slow. Rhythmic. I reached for the baseball bat. The doorbell rang again. Then again. Perfectly spaced, like someone was counting beats. I approached quietly and checked the peephole. A man stood on my porch wearing a Santa suit, full costume, white beard, red hat. He wasn't holding a donation bucket or bag, just an empty clipboard. He tilted his head slightly, listening. He knew I was there. "Good evening," he said softly through the door. "I have something for you." His voice wasn't jolly. It had that same dragging tone as the singer, the tone that made me shiver even in my own house. I didn't answer. He tried the doorknob.
Once. Twice.
3 times. Then he stopped pretending. "It's time we talked," he whispered. I backed away, heart hammering. I reached for my phone, finally a signal. I dialed 911. While the operator asked what the emergency was, a new sound echoed through the house, a soft tapping somewhere deeper inside. Not on the door, on a window. Then another tap behind me, and another on the opposite side. The Santa on the porch wasn't alone. They were surrounding my house. The operator told me to stay on the line, but I was already moving, rushing up the stairs, gripping the bat so hard my hands hurt. I locked myself in my bedroom and crouched beside the bed. The tapping turned to pounding. 3 separate windows. 3 different sets of hands. Then singing. Not from outside this time. From below. In my kitchen. Slow, familiar humming moving from room to room, getting closer to the stairs. The Santa at the front door had been a decoy. The others had gone around the back, just like the singing man had months ago. The song grew clearer, echoing through the hallway. "So nice to see you again." My mouth went dry. The same melody from the fair. The same tone from the woods. They were inside. "Police are almost there," the operator said. "Stay hidden.
Do not speak."
But the footsteps on the stairs were already too close. I slid quietly into my closet, shut the door, and clamped my hand over my mouth. Someone walked into my bedroom. Slow steps, deliberate, as if savoring each creak of the floorboard. Then silence. I didn't dare breathe. A voice whispered right outside the closet door. "We've been waiting." The doorknob twitched, and at that exact moment, sirens ripped across the neighborhood. Loud, urgent, flashing blue through my bedroom curtains. The knob stopped moving. The whisper faded. Footsteps retreated. By the time the police reached my room, the intruders were gone. The back door was found pried open, footprints everywhere in the snow, circling the house like wolves. They spread into different directions, too many to track, too many to be random. The officers stayed with me for hours. I barely spoke. I barely blinked. When they finally left, one of them said quietly, "They weren't just here for you. They were rehearsing." "What do you mean?" I asked. He swallowed. "They learned your home, your schedule, your patterns. This wasn't a break-in attempt. This was a practice run." That night, after the police left, I found something wedged under my bedroom window, a piece of paper streaked with mud and melted snow. On it, in rushed handwriting, "Next time, we won't knock." And below that, 5 symbols. 5 marks. 5 stories. It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't random encounters. It was a ritual, a group, a collective. And they had been circling me for months.